One at Trump-Russia meeting. Senate Intelligence Committee Vice Chairman Mark Warner said Sunday that he'd like to hear from everyone who attended the June 2016 meeting involving President Donald Trump's son and a Russian lawyer. The Virginia Democrat, helping oversee the committee's investigation of Russian meddling in the 2016 election, said in an interview on CNN's State of the Union that he sure as heck wants to talk to Americans over whom the panel has jurisdiction. "I would like to hear from all of these individuals," he said. "Whether we will be able to get the Russian nationals to come over and testify is an open question." Asked whether the security clearance of Jared Kushner, who also attended the meeting, should be suspended, Warner said he is trying to give all these people the benefit of the doubt until the committee interviews them. "But it's very bothersome to me that Jared Kushner has forgotten not once, not twice, but 3 times to put down this information," he said. Donald Trump Jr., Kushner and then Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort met with Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya on June 9, 2016. In an interview on CBS's Face the Nation, Warner said all of these denials over the past year really are now put in doubt. "Now, we hear there may be as many as 8 people in the meeting," he said. "So all of this constant refrain from the president's son, from the president himself that there was no there, that the whole thing is a witch hunt, these folks have been saying that for a year. Yet over a year ago we know they had clear evidence as well that there was a Russian government effort to undermine Clinton and help Trump." The top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Adam Schiff of California, told ABC's This Week that you have now evidence in black and white that yes, the campaign was encouraging the Russians to give them dirt. Asked if there was any link between the meeting and Russia's attempt to influence the campaign, Schiff said, "This is about as clear of evidence you could find of intent by the campaign to collude with the Russians, to get useful information from the Russians." Warner said he'd also like to look into the activities of the Trump campaign's digital team and data analytics firm Cambridge Analytica. He cited false information that moved via Facebook and fake accounts on Twitter. "The ability to manipulate these search engines and some of these social media platforms is real," he said. "It's out there. And we need information from the companies, as well as we need to look into the activities of some of the Trump digital campaign activities." Trump attorney Sekulow says he's unaware of any additional Trump Jr. Russia meetings. President Donald Trump's attorney said Sunday he's not aware of any additional meetings the president's son had with people linked to Russia besides the one with a Russian attorney, and he sought to downplay the incident. Jay Sekulow, who appeared on multiple Sunday morning news programs, told CNN's Jake Tapper there were none that I know of. When asked whether there were more meetings between Donald Trump Jr. and people linked to Russia, but Sekulow stressed, as he has in the past, that he represents the president, not his son. He added multiple times that there was nothing illegal about Trump Jr.'s meeting with Kremlin-linked Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya and that the president had no prior knowledge of it. Sekulow also reacted to news that Trump's campaign spent $50,000 on Trump Jr.'s attorney, Alan Funerfus, before stories broke that the president's son, then campaign chairman Paul Manafort and advisor Jared Kushner met with Veselnitskaya. In a situation like this is not an unusual situation where the individual that is being questioned, or subject to question, Donald Trump Jr., retains counsel, Sekulow said. It involved an incident that involved an email campaign and a meeting when he was doing work for the campaign. So that to me is not an unusual scenario or an unusual setup at all. But I don't know the final determination of who's paying what bills to whom. I think that's still in process. Fate of Kushner's security clearance could ultimately lie with Trump. The decision over whether Jared Kushner will be stripped of his security clearance could ultimately be made by one man, his father-in-law, President Donald Trump. Kushner's actions, including initially failing to disclose meetings with Russian officials, would be more than enough to cost most federal employees their security clearances, according to people familiar with the security clearance process. They would lose their job immediately, said Danielle Bryan, executive director of the Project on Government Oversight. Their clearance would be gone. But Kushner isn't your average federal government employee. The vast majority of security clearance background investigations for officials at federal agencies are handled through the Office of Personnel Management, where nameless government bureaucrats and contractors look for even the slightest of inconsistencies. We'll have clients who, have $2,000 worth of debt that they did not disclose. They pay it off during the investigation and they still don't get approved for security clearance, said Joanna Friedman, an attorney with the Federal Practice Group, who has spent a decade representing employees seeking security clearances. White House officials, though, go through a slightly different process, according to sources familiar with it. For new White House employees who don't already have a clearance sponsored by another agency, background investigations are typically conducted by the FBI, with possible involvement from the CIA. The FBI then forwards its recommendations to the White House. The security clearance process is ultimately rooted in executive authority, not law, meaning the president himself is the ultimate arbiter. It is extremely rare for a president to wade into such an issue, experts said, but Trump does have the power, if he wanted to demand that Kushner keep his clearance. If the president wants someone to have a clearance and access to classified information, there's no one to tell him no, said Stephen Aftergood, a government secrecy expert with the Federation of American Scientists. And this is a president who is fiercely loyal to his family. As Trump biographer Tim O'Brien put it, Trump has always put family first, even if family members lack the skill or experience for the type of job they're being asked to do. Trump wouldn't take away his security clearance himself, O'Brien said. He would have to be convinced by his own attorneys and his staff that the issues had moved beyond familial loyalty. That's going to take a lot of arm twisting and convincing. And it suggests Democrats and other critics who say Kushner should lose his access to classified information may end up disappointed. Kushner, who is married to Trump's daughter Ivanka and serves in the White House as a senior advisor, has been given responsibility over a wide portfolio ranging from the opioid crisis to brokering a Middle East peace deal. Not having a security clearance would hobble him from doing large swaths of his job. On many days, he receives classified briefings, according to a senior administration official, and he is often in the room with his father-in-law for sensitive decisions about classified issues. He has traveled overseas with top military commanders and calls foreign leaders on his own. One source said Kushner sometimes comes to National Security Council meetings at least for part of the meeting and that he often talks to Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. are pictured. White House. In recent weeks, though, Kushner has become the top target of Democratic outrage over the Trump campaign's alleged ties to Russia, with House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi of California on Friday ramping up her calls for his security clearance to be revoked. It's absolutely ridiculous that he should have that clearance, Pelosi said at a news conference. It's not justified in any way. The president could revoke it in a moment, and he should. Federal employees often have temporary clearances for 6 months or more, and it is unclear whether Kushner has a permanent clearance. Kushner initially omitted contacts with foreign officials on his security clearance application form, known as an SF-86, including meetings with Russia's ambassador and a top Russian businessman. Kushner recently updated his SF-86 to include more than 100 foreign contacts, The New York Times reported. And last week, it was revealed that Kushner attended a meeting last year with a Russian lawyer that was pitched as part of a Kremlin-backed effort to help the Trump campaign. A source familiar with the issue said Kushner was not told about the purpose of the meeting and did not read to the bottom of an email chain where the purpose was stated. These and other revelations have led more than 50 House Democrats to urge the White House to revoke Kushner's clearance. Jamie Gorelick, a lawyer for Kushner, said her client had prematurely filed the first security clearance application form but has since done everything possible to be accurate and transparent with his meetings. Mr. Kushner's SF-86 was prematurely submitted and, among other errors, did not list any contacts with foreign government officials, Gorelick explained. The next day, Mr. Kushner submitted supplemental information stating that he had had numerous contacts with foreign officials about which he would be happy to provide additional information. He has since submitted this information, Gorelick continued, including that during the campaign and transition, he had over 100 calls or meetings with representatives of more than 20 countries, most of which were during transition. Mr. Kushner has submitted additional updates and included, out of an abundance of caution, this meeting with a Russian person, which he briefly attended at the request of his brother-in-law, Donald Trump Jr., omitting facts from a security questionnaire could be disqualifying if it was part of a deliberate effort to conceal them, according to federal guidelines. An inadvertent omission would not be so costly. Similarly, making prompt, good faith efforts to correct the omission can mitigate security concerns. When asked last week whether his clearance was still valid, White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, "As always, we've never discussed the security clearances." One government official who went through the process in the past 6 months said it was quite arduous. Agents showed up at this person's house out of state and interviewed his parents and other family members. There were dozens of forms, along with interviews with former colleagues and friends about this person's personal and professional habits, from clients this person held in the past, to any foreign travel, to their history with alcohol and drugs. This person said the agents appeared to be looking for even small inconsistencies in stories. "I don't think it's that hard to get one. But if you had a meeting with a Russian government lawyer, I don't think it would be that easy," this person said. "That would be something they'd care about. They asked me if I'd ever even met with foreign clients." For most of the more than 4 million people who have security clearances in the United States, the process works like this: they are sponsored by an agency and undergo a background investigation. The vast majority of these background investigations are handled by the Office of Personnel Management, according to OPM spokeswoman Sandy Day. Ultimate decisions about whether to grant the clearance, called adjudication, are typically made by the sponsoring agencies. The employee is then subject to periodic re-investigations. But for some White House employees, background investigations are instead handled by the FBI. The president, though, has ultimate authority, since the classification system is laid out in an executive order, rather than in law. If the president says give this person a clearance, nothing else really matters, said Aftergood, the government secrecy expert. There may be political consequences to such a move, but legally and otherwise, it's entirely within the president's authority to grant such a clearance. Kyle Cheney and Jacob Witt contributed to this report.